taught that there's no such things as aliens out there. And we all know that we are the apex of human civilization and that the moon's been there for thousands and thousands of years. And so, therefore, we didn't put it up there. We all know there's no such thing as aliens, so they didn't put it up there. So how do we cope with this mystery of the orbit of the moon? Well, we don't. We just don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We don't address it. We don't think very much about it. But Isaac Asimov, the famous scientist and science fiction writer, wrote, he said, the moon should not be where it is. But it is. And so the only thing that logically, the only solution to how the moon got into the position it is that some intelligent force guided it and parked it in orbit around the Earth.
Exactly.
But again, it wasn't us, and we know there's no such thing as aliens, so we just won't talk about that.
So do you think it could be, it's a loaded word, but God or a kind of a higher force to make us, to make us think, basically, to wake us up? I mean, here's something that
that's entirely possible. Certainly wouldn't rule that out. And personally, I happen to believe in a universal creative force.
Yeah.
But again, here is my understanding of God. Maybe this will help put it in some sort of perspective for you to think about.
Yeah.
You know that in your computer is the hardware is plastic and maybe bits of metal and some solder, and that in and of itself, the hardware is really nothing. The thing that makes your computer work is the energy, the sparks of energy, the bytes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And one little byte of energy, it really is pretty insignificant, but when you get billions of bytes of together, then you have artificial intelligence, and you have intelligence. It's artificial, but it is intelligence, and it can compute, and it can even, and if you've played some of these recent games, on the computer games, they've got intelligences now that start figuring out how you're playing, and then they move to counteract you, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so you've got intelligence, and so the sum total of the sparks of energy within your computer creates an electrical or an electromagnetic thinking energy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, we know, let's extrapolate that up to the human brain. We can create a human brain. We can put the tissue together. We can build it. We can make a brain. Okay. In fact, we could actually build a whole human being, but we cannot make that human being a true thinking, sentient human being because we don't know how to energize it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we could physically make your body, Heinrich, but we can't energize it.
Yeah.
Because the thing that makes you is not the flesh; it's the energy.
Yeah.
You are an energy being, okay? And we know this because now with scientific evidence, they have shown that there is an electrical force field around the body, right?
Yeah.
Some people call it the aura,
Yep.
okay, of energy. And we cannot duplicate that energy. And they've also shown scientifically that when you die, that energy does not dissipate. It just moves off somewhere.
Yeah.
And that fits in with what science tells us, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change form. So you, as one individual spark of energy, an energy being, may not be all that great, but when you combine with me, your family, my family, everyone in the world, everyone in the universe, then you have a collective, we're like the bytes in your computer. And when it's all combined, you have a universal consciousness that is aware of everything, and which pretty well fits the definition of God, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this. I'm starting to think about the ideas of stuff like the holographic universe and things like this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
it's all here because we imagine it's here.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, do you have any take on it? If we ultimately were to, if you were to consider what reality is, do you think that there is a real physical thing in that sense, or is it an as I said, a holographic kind of expression of a universal mind?
Well, yes and no. Okay? We are all at the mercy of the collective consciousness. Okay? So when you go outside of your home and you step out into the street and you get hit by a car, that car is very real, okay? Because everyone agrees that that car is there. And I don't care how much you want to say, oh, that car is just a holographic image and it's not going to hurt me. It will kill you, okay? It will run over you. So in that regard, no, we cannot necessarily, at least most of us. Of course, there's examples all through history, up to and including Jesus, that, was able to heal people, raise people from the dead, move through things, create things, turn water into wine, all this good stuff. And perhaps he could through the conscious manipulation of energy, but most of us are not to that point. So we are pretty much stuck in this three-dimensional material universe, and we're just going to have to learn to live with it. But collectively, we can change the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
Let me try to give you a good example. Well, I had a friend one time who just really did not like to go to parties, okay? That it just frightened her, and she felt out of place, and she was afraid everybody was looking at her or talking about her, and she just was uncomfortable in a social situation. She didn't like to go to parties, and I kept trying to encourage her to go to parties. And finally, I finally just said, look, she said, well, I don't know anybody, and I'm not having any fun. And I said, well, look, you're just looking at it from the wrong standpoint. Think about it. Here's an opportunity to meet some new people and make some new friends. And so I kind of helped her along. We go to parties. I introduce her to people. I try to find somebody who could talk to her about the things that interested her. And sure enough, before long, she enjoyed going to parties. So parties went from being a bad thing to being a good thing. Did the parties change? No. It was her perception that changed.
Yeah.
And like right now, see, the corporate control mass media keeps us bombarded with how terrible a situation the world's in.
Yeah.
Oh, there's death and destruction in Afghanistan and Iraq and in Palestine and in Africa and there's hurricanes and there's tornadoes and there's all this bad stuff going on. There's political corruption, and we just get bombarded with this 24/7 until a lot of us begin to think, the world's a pretty bad place. And when enough people are thinking the world is a pretty bad place, believe me, it's going to be a pretty bad place.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet I live out here in rural Texas, and I'm standing here looking out my window at the beautiful trees. The leaves are beginning to turn. I see the birds flying, and it's peaceful, and everything's still kind of green. And, if you go out there, you realize, hey, this is a beautiful world.
Yeah.
Things are really pretty nice. So it's up to us to get our heads on straight. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to, obviously, I'm not giving up on trying to look and see what's happening in the world. I'm writing books about 9/11. I'm writing books about the secret societies and globalization. So I am concerned about that. But you cannot live your life in fear and dread and anxiety, or you'll begin to perceive the whole world in those terms.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And of course, this again gets me back to the year of 2012 that you, of course, mentioned in our first part that we did on Redice Radio, and to tie it back to that date again, because it seems like if all the things that we've been talking about here, that the knowledge of energy and how things work and what we focus on basically become manifests. I mean, if things were about to happen, kind of like if Earth changes really are, starting to get out of hand and stuff like that, could a solution, I guess, to the problem there be that we collectively, as the human race, kind of gather our focus and kind of I guess manifest this stuff away? Is that too far? I mean, what's your take on that?
Right. Now, keep in mind that I'm not so far out as to say, oh, well, we'll just all have a good attitude and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
No, we're going to have to work at it, okay? That's another thing. There are those in the UFO community who truly believe that our space brothers